We were not poor, we were not rich. My wife abandoned me and followed another man. I walked into the company headquarters in downtown Atlanta. The company my uncle willed to me, wearing the same clothes I'd worn for 3 days. I felt small, invisible. But the moment I introduced myself and saw how their eyes widened, everything shifted. I wasn't just Adam Kent anymore. I was the rightful heir. And for the first time in my life, I had something no one could take from me. By the end of that year, I wasn't the quiet, laid-back husband she abandoned. I was unrecognizable, even to myself. Now, this is how my story all started. My wife had been missing for 3 days in our quiet corner of Toronto, where people notice everything but pretend they don't. And I was the only one in the neighborhood who seemed surprised. On the first night, I called her phone over and over, pacing the living room like a stranger in my own home. No answer, no text, not even a read receipt. The second night, I filed a missing person report. The officer gave me a tired look, the kind people reserve for men who don't realize their marriages are already over. "Sir, adults leave home sometimes. Maybe she needed space," he said, tapping his pen like he wanted me out of the station. Since she took her suitcase and personal items, they classified her as a voluntary missing adult. Her toothbrush was gone, her phone charger too, and the little brown suitcase she kept under the bed, the one she swore she never used, had vanished as if it were never there. By the third night, the house felt colder than winter. I sat in the dark living room with the lamp off, staring at the front door, half expecting her to walk in and laugh like everything was nothing more than a misunderstanding. I rehearsed what I would say. "Where were you? Why didn't you call? Did something happen? Are you okay?" Every question hurt more than the last. Several neighbors avoided eye contact with me during those 3 days. One even shut her curtains the moment I looked her way. At the time, I thought they were just worried for us. I had no idea they were hiding something. At 9:42 p.m., someone knocked. 3 quiet taps, hesitant, like the person on the other side wasn't sure if they should be there. I opened the door, and there stood Mrs. Donnelly from next door. She was shaking so hard I thought she might fall right there on my porch. She clutched the sides of her coat like she was hiding inside it. Her eyes darted behind me, then toward the quiet houses up and down our street. Can I talk to you?" she whispered. I stepped aside, but she didn't move. She looked like someone carrying a secret that was burning her alive from the inside. She kept staring at the street like she expected someone to appear. I noticed her hand was trembling not from cold, but from fear. "Your wife," she said, barely audible. "She's not missing." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean she's not missing? Do you know where she is?" She swallowed, her chin trembling. "She's eloped with a man named Mark." She took a breath that cracked in the middle. "I'm so sorry. Everyone knew. We all thought you already knew." My hands went numb. The hallway behind me tilted. Her next words hit even harder. "And that's not the worst part," she whispered. "There's something else. Something she's been doing. Something you need to know." The room spun, and suddenly the last 3 days made a horrifying kind of sense. My wife wasn't lost. She had been hiding, and not from danger. From me. I sat down on the edge of the sofa after Mrs. Donnelly left, staring at the blank TV screen like it could give me answers. My house felt different now, heavier, like every wall knew something I didn't. I kept replaying her trembling voice, her pale face, the way she couldn't look me in the eye. Everyone knew. Those 2 words burned the deepest. My name is Adam Kent. I'm 38 years old, a quiet man by nature, the kind who listens more than he talks. My wife, Laura, used to say that was what she loved most about me. That I wasn't loud, that I didn't argue, that I was easy. I always took it as a compliment. Only now did I understand what easy really meant. Someone she thought she could walk around. Someone who wouldn't open his mouth even if the floor was cracking beneath him. Laura and I met 12 years ago at a local bookstore. She was the type of woman who filled a room with energy the second she stepped in. Confident, warm, always laughing. I fell for her fast, maybe too fast. We married within a year. Back then, every morning felt like a small miracle. She'd sing while making coffee, leave little notes in my work bag, tell me she couldn't imagine life with anyone else. I never saw the cracks forming, not even when they were right in front of me. Looking back, the changes weren't sudden. They came quietly, the same way fog rolls in at night. Slow, silent, impossible to notice until it surrounds you completely. She started working late. Then she started spending weekends helping her sister. Her perfume changed. Her makeup routine doubled in time. Her phone became something she guarded like gold. Sometimes she'd get messages late at night and tilt the screen away from me. I thought it was just privacy. Looking back, it felt more like hiding numbers or plans I wasn't supposed to see. Whenever I asked gentle questions, she laughed it off. You worry too much, Adam. You read into things that aren't there. You know how I am. And the truth is, I did know how she was. Restless, impulsive, always looking for something new to excite her. I just never believed she would look for it outside our marriage. The people around me sensed things before I did. My best friend, Eric, warned me once while we were fixing the fence between our yards. Your wife, she talks to other men a lot. I don't want to be the one to say it, but you're too trusting, Adam. Too quiet. I brushed him off, embarrassed. I didn't want to be the insecure husband snooping through phones or questioning every late-night text. That wasn't who I was. Or maybe that's just who I forced myself to pretend to be so I wouldn't face the truth. The last normal day before she disappeared was a Thursday. Breakfast was simple, toast and eggs. She barely touched hers. She kept glancing at her phone, smiling at messages I never saw. 2 days before that morning, my late uncle's inheritance had finally cleared into our joint account. $8 million. I remember telling Laura we'd finally be able to breathe financially. For a moment, she smiled. Now I realize it wasn't relief in her eyes. It was opportunity. And yes, Laura knew the money had arrived. I told her the same day. My uncle wasn't just a relative. He was the man who raised me when my own father couldn't. When I was 13, my dad walked out on us. My mother worked double shifts at the hospital, and I spent most afternoons sitting alone in an empty house. My uncle, my father's older brother, started picking me up after school so I wouldn't be alone. He wasn't married. He had no children of his own. And in those small, quiet car rides, he became the closest thing I ever had to a real father. He taught me everything I knew about life. How to shake a man's hand properly, how to fix a broken fence, how to listen even when I didn't know what to say. He used to tell me, Adam, the world doesn't reward the loudest person. It rewards the person who keeps his word. Maybe that's why I turned out quiet. Maybe that's why Laura always called me easy. I was raised to keep things steady, to keep things calm. When I was in my early 30s, my uncle fell sick. I visited him every weekend, even when Laura complained about wasting time in the hospital. I fed him soup when he couldn't lift his arms. I cleaned his house when he came home for a short recovery. I handled his medications. I drove him to every appointment. He always grabbed my wrist before I left and said the same thing. I won't forget you, Adam. I never thought he meant anything material. I just thought he was grateful. A year before he died, he told me he regretted never having children. I told him he did. He had me. He cried that night. The only time I'd ever seen him cry. When he passed, I didn't expect anything except grief. So when the lawyer called me months later to say my uncle had left me his life savings, 2 commercial estates, and majority ownership of the company he'd spent 40 years building, I couldn't even speak. All I could think was, why me? Later, the lawyer told me my uncle once said, Adam never asks for anything. That's why he deserves everything. I didn't tell Laura the emotional part. I didn't think she'd care. I simply told her the inheritance had cleared into our account. I didn't know then that the last gift my uncle left me would become the very thing Laura used to betray me. The day she left, she kissed my cheek the way someone kisses a relative, not a husband. I remember watching her walk out the door with her small brown suitcase. But at the time, I thought she was just taking clothes to donate like she said. I didn't question it. That night, she didn't come home. By morning, I was pacing the kitchen, calling her sister, calling hospitals. Nobody had seen her. Everyone sounded confused, worried. convincing. Now, after what Mrs. Donnelly told me, I realized they were probably pretending. Mrs. Donnelly herself wasn't someone who gossiped. She was a quiet widow with silver hair and soft eyes. She watched everything in the neighborhood, not out of nosiness, but because she lived alone and noticing things became her routine. When her voice shook at my door, when she finally confessed, I understood how heavy the truth must have been for her. After she left, I sat back down and replayed every moment of the past year. Every lie I ignored, every sign I dismissed, every late night she came home smelling like someone else's cologne. Every time she pushed me away with excuses that sounded rehearsed. But the part that gnawed at me now wasn't the affair. It was the way everything she'd done the past few weeks suddenly made sense. The extra keys she asked for, the documents she said she needed to organize, the random errands that took hours. There was more, something deeper, something darker. And as I sat alone in that silent living room, with the weight of 12 years pressing on my chest, I realized the truth might not only break my heart, it might break my entire life apart piece by piece. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife. I was dealing with a betrayal that had been planned, whispered about, and known by everyone but me. And whatever Mrs. Donnelly hadn't said yet was going to change everything. But even then, I thought the worst part was the affair. I didn't know that what Laura and Mark had done went far beyond running away. They hadn't just left me. They had emptied me. They had planned it. They had studied me. They had waited until the exact moment the inheritance cleared. Every step felt like walking deeper into a life I no longer recognized. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of heaviness that makes your bones feel older. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mrs. Donnelly's face. Pale, guilty, almost afraid, and heard her telling me my wife was with another man. But her voice echoing in my head wasn't what scared me the most. It was the unfinished sentence. And that's not the worst part. By 7 a.m., I couldn't take the silence anymore. I walked to her house, telling myself I wasn't going to demand anything. I just needed clarity. I knocked, and she opened almost instantly, as if she'd been pacing the hallway waiting for me. "Adam, please come inside," she said softly. Her living room smelled like lavender and old furniture. She motioned for me to sit, but she remained standing, wringing her hands so tightly her knuckles turned white. "I didn't sleep," I confessed. "I know," she whispered. There was a pause, the kind that fills a room with dread. "Mrs. Donnelly, just tell me," I said. "Tell me everything." She inhaled sharply. "Your wife hasn't been missing. She has an affair with a man named Mark Barlow. He lives 2 streets over, near the community garden." I blinked. The name meant nothing to me. "She met him last year," she continued, "at the hardware store, the one off Briarwood Street near downtown Houston. People, they saw things. Long conversations in the parking lot. Private meetings. It wasn't just an occasional visit, Adam. It was constant. I felt my mouth go dry. And everyone knew?" She nodded. "Everyone except you." The words landed like stones. But her expression changed then. Her eyes clouded with something heavier than gossip, something like fear. She sat down across from me and leaned in. "Your wife wasn't just unfaithful," she said, her voice trembling. "She's been taking money. A lot of it." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What money?" "From you," Mrs. Donnelly whispered. "From your joint account. And from another account she opened in your name, one you didn't even know existed." "I don't understand," I said. I could tell she was holding back something heavier, something she had pieced together from things she had overheard on her porch over the past few weeks. "How do you know this?" I asked. "Because I overheard her," she said, lowering her voice. "Last month, she was outside on the porch talking to that man. She didn't know I was nearby." She paused, gathering herself. "She said Laura had been talking about moving money slowly, so I wouldn't notice." Mrs. Donnelly hesitated then, like she was debating whether to tell me the rest. "She said she wanted everything ready before she filed for divorce. She said she was going to make you look unstable." That's when a memory hit me. A day last month when I was too sick to get out of bed and Laura hovered over papers she wouldn't let me see. She said it was a delivery form. I didn't think twice. Now I wish I had. My breath froze. What? Mrs. Donnelly's eyes welled with tears. She said that she was planning to tell people that you were controlling her, that you were emotionally abusive, that you tracked her, monitored her, restricted her. I stared at her, stunned into stillness. I know, Adam. Her voice broke. Everyone knows. You're the calmest man on this street. You wouldn't hurt a fly. I felt a wave of nausea rise. The room spun. My palms grew cold. Betrayal wasn't a strong enough word for what I felt creeping up my spine. This wasn't infidelity. This was strategy. This was planning. This was cruelty dressed like intelligence. She said you'd never see it coming, Mrs. Donnelly whispered. Because you trust too easily. There it was again. That word. Easy. My wife loved it. My best friend warned me about it. And now I understood why. But Mrs. Donnelly wasn't done. There's something else, she said, voice barely above a breath. The man she's staying with, Mark, he isn't who she thinks he is. I looked up sharply. He's been in trouble before. People in the neighborhood talk. They say he has a history of using women, taking their money, pressuring them to invest in his projects, then leaving them with debt. And she's giving him money? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She nodded. A lot of it. That's why she wanted more. That's why she needed your accounts. My stomach twisted. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was bleeding our finances dry to fund a stranger's schemes. And she was ready to tear down my life if I interfered. Mrs. Donnelly touched my arm gently. I didn't want to tell you, she said. But when she didn't come home, when you were calling for help, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. You deserve to know what she's been doing. I could only nod. My throat felt tight, as if words would choke me if I tried to speak. Before I left, she added one final blow. She told him she'd have everything transferred soon. The money, the house. She said you were too soft to fight back. Her voice cracked. I am so sorry, Adam. I walked home in a daze, feeling like a ghost floating over my own street. The betrayal wasn't a single act. It was a dozen decisions, 100 lies, a year of careful planning. Every laugh she faked, every kiss that felt colder, every late night she brushed off. Every you worry too much, Adam. It wasn't carelessness. It was preparation. And I suddenly understood something terrifying. My wife didn't leave by accident. She left because her betrayal was finally complete, or at least she thought it was. What she didn't know was that her plan was about to unravel, and I wasn't the easy man she remembered. Not anymore. When I walked back into my house, it felt like stepping into someone else's life. I thought about calling the only other person who might have understood any of this, my uncle. But he was gone. And with him, the secrets tied to the inheritance he'd left behind. One I hadn't even told Laura about. The curtains, the framed photos, the neatly stacked mail. Everything looked familiar, yet suddenly none of it belonged to me. My chest felt tight, like the air itself was resisting every breath I tried to take. I didn't sit down. I didn't cry. I didn't shout or punch the wall the way some men might. Instead, I walked straight to the small desk in the corner where we kept our bills and bank records. Laura always handled the finances. She managed all our notifications, statements, and email alerts too. Everything went to the shared inbox she controlled. I trusted her with every dollar I earned. I used to tell people she was the organized one, the responsible one. That was my first mistake. I opened the drawer. Bills, receipts, old checkbooks, bank statements, all mixed together in a pile she probably thought I'd never touch. My hands shook as I sorted through them. For a moment, I felt completely hollow, like Laura had scooped out whatever version of me she wanted and left the shell to figure out the rest. But in that darkness, a strange realization arrived. Laura didn't know everything. She didn't know about the sealed envelope my uncle left with his lawyer. The one containing shares to the company he built from scratch, a multimillion-dollar enterprise she never suspected existed. I had never told her. And now that omission was the only thing she hadn't managed to steal. It didn't take long before I found what I wasn't ready to see. Transfers, withdrawals, amounts that didn't match anything we'd discussed. As I pieced together the bank alerts, the forged digital signatures, the slow siphoning, something else surfaced. Documents from my late uncle's estate. Files Laura had accessed on my laptop weeks before she disappeared. Files she had no business touching. That's when I realized she had tried to sell the estates too. Only 2 went through before the 3rd caught attention for inconsistent signatures. That inconsistency became my first breadcrumb. She successfully sold 2. The 3rd was blocked. If you're still here with me, tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. Now, back to the story. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she had surprise expenses. Maybe she was helping a family member. Maybe she had medical bills she didn't want to worry me with. But then I saw a pattern, the same amount every 2 weeks, always going into the same unknown account. And the total was far more than anything a favor or emergency would justify. My throat tightened. My mind screamed to stop looking. But my fingers kept turning pages, flipping through months of quiet betrayal. Then I found something worse. A credit card statement under my name that I had never seen before. Card I never applied for. Thousands charged to it. And the due dates were recent, meaning she'd been using it freely, knowing the bills would eventually come to me. My wife wasn't just planning to leave me. She was setting me up to drown after she was gone. I stared at the dwindling account balance until the numbers blurred. $8 million. Gone like smoke. Estate titles compromised. Every safety net I thought I had cut clean. I felt like a ghost living in the shell of my own life. I sat back in the chair, staring at the papers spread across the desk like a crime scene. The kind of crime that leaves no bruises but carves wounds deeper than bone. For the first time in a long time, something inside me hardened. I took out my phone. The bank's customer service line rang, and while my voice trembled at first, it grew steadier with each passing minute. The representative confirmed everything. The unauthorized card, the withdrawals, the attempt to change property ownership while I was recovering from the flu last month. She said you requested it, the representative told me. I almost laughed. I was asleep for 18 hours a day. Yes, sir. That's why we denied it. The signature didn't match. Somewhere inside, a small part of me whispered, thank God. When I hung up, I wasn't the same man who had answered the phone. I opened my laptop. I took screenshots. I downloaded statements going back 2 years. I organized everything into folders labeled clearly. Unauthorized transfers, fraudulent card property, attempt suspicious activity. Every click felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I wasn't ready yet, but something in me was shifting. Something that had been quiet for far too long. Once I had the financial proof, I needed to know who I was dealing with, the man she left me for. Mark Barlow. I searched his name online. Not much came up at first, but after digging through local forums, complaint pages, and community warnings, the truth surfaced. Old arrest records from Chicago popped up first, nothing major, but enough to show a pattern. Bankruptcies, small claims lawsuits, 2 women accusing him of coercing them into funding his business projects. 1 woman who'd lost her savings to him, and then he disappeared. My stomach flipped. My wife thought she'd found love. In reality, she'd walked into the arms of a man who saw her exactly the way she saw me. A source. But there was something else brewing beneath the surface. Something more important than anger. Clarity. For 12 years, I had been frozen in place, doing everything to keep the peace, believing love meant understanding, patience, compromise. Now I saw the truth. I hadn't been peaceful. I had been silent. Not because I was calm, but because I was afraid to lose her. And that fear had cost me pieces of my dignity, one quiet day at a time. I closed the laptop and looked around my house. My home, my life, my future, all waiting for me to make a decision. That was the moment something broke open inside my chest. Not pain, not grief, resolve. I wasn't going to wait for her to come home and finish destroying what little was left of my life. I wasn't going to beg or plead or swallow her lies. I wasn't going to be the easy husband she counted on. I started making calls to the bank fraud department, to a lawyer, to the credit bureau to freeze any new accounts. Every step felt like stepping out of a fog I didn't realize I'd been living in. When I finished, the sun was setting outside the window. The house was quiet again, but this time the silence didn't suffocate me. I walked into the company headquarters. The company my uncle willed to me, wearing the same clothes I'd worn for 3 days. I felt small, invisible. But the moment I introduced myself and saw how their eyes widened, everything shifted. I wasn't just Adam anymore. I was the majority shareholder, the rightful heir. And for the first time in my life, I had something no one could take from me. Weeks blurred into months as I forced myself to learn the business my uncle left behind. I studied, stumbled, learned, and tried again. Slowly, the fear faded, and confidence took its place. It sharpened me, because whatever happened next, I was ready. And when Laura walked back through that door, whenever she decided to face what she'd done, she wasn't coming home to the same man she thought she'd fooled. She didn't know that the man standing in front of her had already begun rebuilding. Not just defenses, but something stronger. She was coming home to someone awake. I didn't hear from Laura again. Not for weeks. Not for months. Not even for the entire first year after she vanished with him. By the end of that year, I wasn't the quiet, laid-back husband she abandoned. I was unrecognizable even to myself. During those long months, Evelyn, one of the junior analysts, became one of the few people I could rely on. Calm, steady, and quietly supportive. If you love stories of betrayal, hidden truths, and justice that strikes when no one expects it, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. New stories drop every day, each one darker, sharper, and more unforgettable than the last. Now, back to the story. We worked together for months before either of us acknowledged the slow, quiet connection forming between us. Then one morning, 2 years after she disappeared, my assistant knocked gently on my office door. "Sir, someone is waiting to see you. She says she knows you." I stepped into the reception area and froze. Laura, thinner, pale, eyes hollow, clothes wrinkled. She didn't look at me at first. She stared at the floor. "Adam, he left me." Her voice cracked. "Mark, the man I left you for, he took all the money, every last cent. He promised me a future, Adam. But when I told him I was pregnant, he blocked me, changed his number, sold the car, and disappeared without a trace." She swallowed hard, trembling. "I lost the baby," she whispered. "I was so stressed, I couldn't keep anything down. I had no doctor, no support, no one." For a moment, memories flickered. Our early years, our small apartment, how she used to hum while brewing coffee. But then the other memories returned. The late-night secrecy, the forged signatures, the empty accounts, the betrayal so deep it scorched the foundations of my identity. "Adam, please," she whispered. "Say something." For a split second, something inside me twisted. Not love, but the echo of what we once shared. But I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just clarity. "Laura," I said quietly, "you made your choices, but I wasn't finished. Not yet." Letting Laura go had been my choice, a painful, quiet acceptance. I didn't chase her when she left with the man she chose. In a way, it felt like watching her walk away with a divorce settlement she carved out of my life without any paperwork. I accepted it. I mourned it. And then I rebuilt myself from the shards she left behind. But what Mark did wasn't abandonment. It was a crime. So I moved strategically. I brought in investigators, forensic accountants, analysts, even a retired detective the company had on retainer for corporate fraud cases. What they found made my blood run cold. Not just what he took from me, but what he had taken from other women, using the same charm, the same promises, the same lies. With every report, with every bank freeze, with every piece of evidence, the case built itself. Identity manipulation, shell corporations, fraudulent investments, illicit transfer of estate property. After weeks of tracking, we found him in a small business district outside Jacksonville, Florida, renting under a false name and grooming his next target. When we arrived, he was in a glass-walled boardroom, pitching lies to investors who had no idea of the predator standing before them. The moment he saw me step through the door, flanked by 2 detectives, the color drained from his face. "Adam," he croaked, "sit down." The detectives spread out folders of evidence across the table. I added the final stack. Documents he forged in Laura's name, bank transfers he'd hidden abroad, the messages he sent her the same week she miscarried alone. His hands shook violently. "You're done," I said quietly. "Not because of what you did to me, but because of what you did to her." One of the detectives read him his rights. Mark collapsed into the chair, breath shallow, eyes wide with the realization that the life he'd built on lies had finally caught up. His knees buckled as they cuffed him. The room went completely silent. When the detectives led Mark away in restraints, I stayed seated for a long moment, letting the quiet settle. There was no victory in my chest, only a steady, grounded calm. The storm was finally ending. The next morning, when I arrived at the precinct, the main police precinct in Jacksonville, Florida, to finalize the paperwork with the detectives, I saw her. Outside, near the entrance of the building, Laura sat on a cold metal bench. Her shoulders were hunched, her eyes red and distant, hands trembling around a tissue she'd shredded down to threads. She looked nothing like the woman who once walked out of our home with confidence and a packed suitcase. She looked like someone who had finally reached the end of every road she had chosen. She rose slowly as I approached. "Adam," she whispered, "what happens now?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lash out. I simply reached into my coat and pulled out a manila envelope. "These are divorce papers," I said. Her breath hitched. "You're divorcing me?" "Laura," I answered softly, "you already took your divorce settlement the day you emptied our accounts. $8 million, everything my uncle left me. That was your share." She staggered back slightly. "And I need you to understand something," I continued. "If you try to claim anything else, if you think you can take this further, the investigators will look into your part of the estate documents. The forged signatures alone could put you in prison. I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you the truth you keep running from." She covered her mouth as tears welled again. I didn't know he would do this to me," she said, voice breaking. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps behind me. Evelyn. She stood a few paces away, giving me space but grounding me with her presence. She wasn't dressed to impress. Just a neat blouse, simple jewelry, a calm expression, the kind of beauty that never tried too hard. This was the woman who had seen me at rock bottom during my earliest months at the company. The assistant project analyst who stayed late teaching me the systems my uncle built, who brought me coffee on the days I barely slept, who never asked for anything in return. She didn't fill silence with words. She respected it. She didn't push into my life. She walked beside it. She waited until I looked at her, then offered a small, steady smile. Laura glanced between us, shaking. "Is she the reason you won't take me back?" I shook my head slowly. "No, Laura. The reason I won't take you back is because you already ended our marriage the day you walked out with him. Evelyn didn't take anything from me." I turned toward Evelyn and she stepped closer. Not grabbing, not clinging, just standing with me in quiet strength. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded. Laura sank back onto the bench, sobbing into her hands as Evelyn and I walked away. Not as savior and survivor, but as two people choosing each other for all the right reasons. Laura once took everything from me. My money, my trust, my name, my identity. But losing her forced me to rebuild every piece of myself from the ground up. And in rebuilding, I became a man she never would have been able to destroy. She didn't save me by leaving. Her betrayal simply revealed the man I was always meant to become. If stories of betrayal and hidden truths keep you thinking long after they end, click the story showing on your screen now.